Hey everyone, I am Jason Crandell. Welcome to the Yoga Teacher's Companion. I want to break down for you the several ways that I work with my students when they're having difficulty with their wrists in down dog, plank, and chaturanga. Now, there are other poses, especially arm balances, handstand, and some other deeper back bends where the arms are overhead, that students often have wrist challenges as well. Those are a little bit beyond the scope of our conversation, but some of the tools that I'm going to use and some of the underlying logic to help with plank, chaturanga, and down dog are things as teachers you could experiment with. I think if you get some of these underlying concepts and some of the tools, you can apply them or think through the process of applying them to other wrist challenging poses. So first, let's just get on the same page with the position of the hands and the range of possibilities for down dog, plank, and chaturanga. Conventionally, what we do, everybody, is we situate the hands. So in these poses, the middle fingers are facing forward or the index fingers are facing forward, right? So either middle fingers facing forward or index fingers facing forward. Now, we also typically spread the fingers wide and gently root down through the full circumference of the palm and through the fingertips themselves. So those are all the basic things that we want to make sure are already in place. One of the simplest, and to be honest with you, least commonly effective fixes is to just slightly change that underlying position. So the easiest thing that you can experiment with is significantly turning the hands out. You can situate the hands, everybody, even so that it's the thumbs that are facing forward. Now, for a lot of people, this changes the angle of stress that's being transmitted through the wrist just enough to be effective, okay? So you can give that a go because it's such a low-hanging fruit. It doesn't require a prop or much effort at all, okay? So I want to throw that out there. There's one more thing that I want to throw out there that doesn't require any additional support or prop, but it's a specific use case. Most of the time when students have wrist discomfort in the poses that we're describing, it's on this anterior surface, right? This top of the wrist, and it's in full extension. It's likely an issue of compression that's occurring, and we'll talk about how to deal with this. Or it's on this underside, right? It's a scenario in which there's too much tension. Those tissues are being overstretched. Those are the common locations, and we're going to deal with those in a moment. But in these poses, your students are feeling the discomfort here. So if your students are feeling the discomfort on the inner side, that medial side, right where the thumb is, or on the lateral side, on the pinky side of the hand, then actually the solution is often very atypical considering what we usually tell our students. We're always telling our students to spread those fingers, right? But do this with me, please, wherever you are, right? You can do this sitting, there's any situation, unless you're driving. Bring one hand, I'll use the left. Bring your left hand so that all of the fingers and thumbs are together. Just kind of pull them together. And then with your other hand, just gently squeeze right at the wrist. So you're just underneath the bottom or the heel of the hand. And with your hand, just kind of like wrap around that. So my right hand is wrapping around my left, okay? And I just get a sense of what's happening there, okay? Now, stay here, keep doing this. And now open up your fingers wide. Like spread them like we tell students to spread them, okay? And what you're gonna feel is an increase of tension in the ligaments that work the thumb and the ligaments that work the pinky finger. So again, now keep that squeeze and bring all those fingers together. And you're gonna feel that area, kind of the diameter slightly decreases. There's a decrease of tension in those ligaments. Now, one more time. If your students are feeling pain on the pinky side or the thumb side, have them bring their hands together. So when this happens, everybody, you're going to be, so many of you and your students are going to be surprised. But when people then do down dog, almost like they have ridiculously tight mittens on and they're kind of squeezing in with the thumb and the pinky finger, when people do poses like this, it feels kind of strange at first, but you're taking tension off of those ligaments and decreasing stress. That works wonders. But again, that use case is really for discomfort on the inside or outside, but that is a really good possibility. Now, let's look at the next possibility, and this is one of the most common solutions. I don't think it's yet the best solution for most people, but putting your hands on blocks with a couple of subtle nuances can be really helpful. I'm going to show you those nuances and I'm going to show you why. So a lot of times what students will do when they're putting their hands on blocks is they'll kind of wedge the heel of the hand against the near surface of the block so their hands don't slip, okay? And this can be fine. If this works, okay? We're just looking for something that works. So if this works, it's fine. But what I find is more helpful is taking your hands all the way on top, so we don't have the heel of the hand kind of up against that edge. We're all the way on top, but we're turning the hand slightly out, and we're actually gripping the block. Now, if someone doesn't have big enough hands to do this, that's fine, but turning the hand slightly out can help you kind of now squeeze the block and hold on to it. And when you do this, everybody, you engage a little bit more, let's just call it muscular robustness in the circumference of the forearms, right? You kind of turn all this stuff on. And instead of those hands being flat and inarticulate, like they're like ping pong paddles, they're now you have some good grab through them, okay? So again, you would turn the hands slightly out, you would get a nice little grip to the block, and then you have your down dog, you have your plank, you have your chaturanga. Like all of these poses are actually really nice on a block. Again, the more I elevate my hands, the less weight there's going to be in my hands, and the more that weight is going to be transmitted to the feet. I brought a stool in just so you see the logic, right? I mean, if you had something like this actually works really nicely. Hands on chair works really nicely, but that's a less common thing for a studio to have. But if you don't quite see the mechanical relationship, now you will. If I have my hands all the way up like this, by the way, this feels amazing. I actually really love this version of the pose. If you have your hands all the way up on a stool like this, you can just see, oh, there's so much more weight in my lower body. There's a lot less weight in my upper body. And so my wrists are experiencing a lower amount of weight load, okay? So now we have another really good option, okay? For the most part, I'm trying to select into options that are relatively user-friendly. And so most students have blocks. If you don't have blocks, there's easy purchase. Studios, they have blocks, most. But studios also often have an extra mat. So watch what we're gonna do with this. Now this works with a different mechanism. The mechanism that we just looked at was decreasing the total amount of weight being transmitted through the hand and the wrist. It's a pretty obvious one, right? Now this is a little bit different. We're not really decreasing the amount of weight being transmitted through the wrist. We're decreasing the amount of extension that the wrist is undergoing. So when we're doing poses, especially plank and chaturanga, our wrists, right, in both of these poses, plank and chaturanga, our wrists are in 90 degrees of extension. In down dog, It's less, but it's still a lot for many people. And a lot of times people just don't have the flexibility or even the genetic structural range of motion in the wrist that allows for that range plus weight on it. So the next thing that we're going to do that I'm going to show here with the mat is we're going to decrease the amount of wrist extension by elevating the heel of the hand. So in those poses, the wrist is more at this angle instead of this angle, right? So we have a little bit more of a sloping angle to the wrist, so there's less compression on the front side and less stretch or tension on the back side. So the way that we do this, and I'm just doing it with a folded yoga mat. And then I'll describe another thing that you can use here in a moment. But I have a folded yoga mat. And all I'm elevating, everybody, and this is really key that you understand this. All I'm elevating is the heel of my hand, okay? Just the heel. So the base of the fingers are still on the ground. I'm not up here. I just have the heel of the hand lifted. And then I'm working these poses, right? So it's just this. So if you look at my wrist now in down dog, you're gonna see it's much more, I'll show it again, but it's much more pointed. And so that the stress or the mechanical load that is being transmitted through that region, it's not getting jammed into the wrist. There's a little bit more of a point to it. Final solution. We have here dumbbells, and they're squared off. With squared off dumbbells, you can hold the dumbbells like this. And I will show you from another angle. So you have down dog, you have your plank, you have your chaturanga, you have your upward facing dog, okay? And the nice thing is now you have weight being transmitted through your wrist in a much better plane. You don't have any wrist extension. It's all right here. It's the same thing as being on your knuckles, which, by the way, you can do all of these things on your knuckles or your forearms. That's the easiest, quickest solution, but it's not that satisfying. So if need be, knuckles are fine. If need be, forearms in these poses are fine. But I think in most of these scenarios, actually being on the hand and having that control is going to be a little bit better. And the nice thing about this, everybody, like I said, it puts the wrist in at a more preferable angle. So you're not getting the compression on one side or the tension on the other side. But the other reason it's better than just knuckles is because it gives you something outside of the body to get a good grip on. So just like I kind of said with this earlier, holding a block and getting a good grip is going to give you quality engagement of the circumference muscles of the wrist and the forearm. Okay, you can start to bring those to bear. You can do that with a fist, but it's harder to get as much grip, and also it's just uncomfortable. Something like this, super comfortable for people. I have had so many students over the years find this as an inconvenient in the yoga classroom solution, because they're gonna drag dumbbells around, but invaluable in people's home practice or practice with me on Glow or other teachers online, okay? All of these are likely to work, and I always want you to understand the mechanism, like why we have the challenges that we have, and then several different solutions to experiment with. So experiment with these for yourself, for your students. I think you'll find them highly valuable. And if you find this kind of work valuable, I am releasing in the end of February of this year, 2024, A Better Way to Flow. It's my online training for teachers about injury management and injury prevention. Things like this are just so helpful to have a a comprehensive understanding about the kinds of challenges that we typically face and our students face in the yoga room, the mechanical challenges, and the best, most straightforward way to accommodate our students that need a little bit of additional help, okay? So if you're interested in that, the information is below, and I would love to see you there. All right, everyone, thanks for listening. Share the stuff with your students. I hope you can use this to help people. Thanks, everyone. Have a good day.